Hey everybody, welcome to the 2021 edition of the Over the Hump race series. Coming out of 2019, I had a couple of great results. I cracked the top 5 in my last race and mostly finished the season in the top 10, and that was enough for 8th overall. So I had pretty high expectations of myself this year. That wasn't going to happen. There was some reshuffling and a lot of strong riders came out. Things got more competitive, and I had to adjust my expectations. So rather than make everybody watch me lose for 4 races in a row, we're going to cut to the chase here. Look at just the highlights from the first couple of races. This is going to be race 2, 3, and 4. Oh, let's get to it. My plan for this race, ostensibly, was that I was going to find the leaders and hang with them for as long as I possibly could and not really worry too much about my eventual results. But you can see I'm sitting 4 rows back right from the start. Got not a great lineup position, so it's going to take me a minute to get up there if I manage to get there at all. I don't want to overcook the start, so I kind of get the idea that, okay, I'm going to need to pace myself, be aggressive, keep passing people if I can, and kind of work my way up. But I've got the front in sight, so I'm not terribly worried. But at this point, I am sitting probably 12th, 15th wheel, so I do need to move up. About 6 minutes in, we're coming through the trees here, coming down into this thing, and there's a bit of loose gravel up front, which causes a little bit of a slide out. We got a couple of riders regrouping, and that was where I really lost track of the front of the race. I think up until that point, I'd been back by about 5 seconds or so. And at this point, I knew that it'd probably cost me an extra 5 or 10 seconds, and I was off the pace. I was trying to catch back up as much as I could, but I kind of knew it wasn't going to happen. Coming onto the flats, I was on the wheel of the guy in the red Fullerton Bikes kit here. Remember that kit, you're going to see it again later. The plan was just to make some good choices along the flats, draft as best I could, and see if I could pick up a few slots. I had kind of resigned myself that I wasn't going to be able to catch the front of the race. So at this point, it was about doing as well as I could and honestly learning as much as I could. Try some stuff, see what works. I was on the wheel of the guy in the pink striped jersey here and just trying to make the most of what we could do. I could see the train a few yards up here, and I was hoping Pink Stripe would get me up there. Already, I'm not doing great as far as drafting. I should be right on his wheel. I'm leaving too much of a gap to really get as much benefit from that as I can. You see I'm still pushing 300 watts, and part of that is that he's pushing hard to catch the train, but I'm having to work harder than I really should have to. Minutes later, we're coming into this corner, and I'm still on Pink Stripe's wheel, but I have this idea that I'm going to go around the outside. I thought I had more momentum than I really did. I had a little bit extra coming on the slight downslope here, but I should have just stayed on his wheel. I saw this rider on the left, and I decided that I was just going to push on by, and it put me over in the gravel on the left-hand side, which is just going to slow me down. And now there's nowhere to slot back in, and I'm having to go around riders. I'm on the rough turf, and it's terrible position to be in. Now, the gap's opened up. The rider that's blocking me is also not keeping up. I have to go around the outside at this corner, and I should be up where the blue jersey is. And at this moment, not terrible. I managed to kind of push a little bit and get caught back on, but a lot of wasted effort right there, and that was sort of par for the course for this race. I was still getting my legs under me, and on this one, the guy in the Velosport jersey came in, filled the gap, and now he's where I should have been. So now the wheel I was following is drifting up the road. The blue jersey that was behind me should have been my new wheel, and the Velosport rider's ahead of me when he was 2 wheels back. Kind of a bad 30 seconds of decision making for me right there. Minutes later, I'm still on Pink Stripe's wheel, kept it from getting too out of control, and there's blue jersey right ahead of him. So things have kind of come back together for me, but I failed to scope out this corner, and I didn't realize how loose it was going to be. Boom, there I go. And wouldn't you know it, look who it is, red Fullerton Bikes kit. I could have just stayed on his wheel this whole time and saved myself all of that trouble. And now pulling myself back up and trying to get back up to speed, I am pretty well cooked. You can see my heart rate's up. Everybody's riding off into the distance, and I still have a couple of climbs ahead of me. I'm very, very cooked. And that's pretty much how it stayed for me the rest of the race. Here I am grinding it out at the end of the last lap. Buddy came by, offered me a pull, but At this point, even with no climbing, no nothing, 11 miles an hour is the best I can do. If I had known my placement at the time, I might have been able to hang on, might have been able to summon some motivation, but it just didn't happen. And so the best I could do was to crawl in for 12th place. Coming into week 3, I was determined to get a better start and mark the front runners as much as I could and just stay with that. I wanted to do better pacing, and I wanted to stop making a lot of the silly mistakes and wasting effort the way I had been in the first 3 races. Coming into this first turn here, I had a bit of a mishap. I dropped my chain. Not a great way to start a race, but not too much damage done. I'm still sitting about 5th or 6th wheel, and right to my right there is the race leader in the green jersey. So I feel pretty fortunate not to have lost too much time there, and I'm still sitting happily at the front of the race. I decided to just pace off him for as long as I could and see how that turned out. Now I managed to hang with the green jersey a little bit, mostly through the twisties, and just when I've given up, I look ahead around this corner and there he is. So I'm feeling pretty good. I follow up through this corner and head on down into the flats. Unfortunately, coming into the flats, I am starting to realize just how cooked I am from having to go so hard through all the twisties before this. Now, what I didn't know is the guy in the black and the red helmet that's getting away from me right there would eventually go on to win this race. Now, so I'm still in okay position, but the reality that was sinking in these races was that not having the fitness doesn't give you the freedom to make good decisions or even bad decisions. You're just doing what you can to hang in there. So this race didn't go well for me. I had started the season with high hopes, and for this one, I came in at, for me, a disappointing 22nd. That really just kind of humbled me a little bit, and I had to regroup and figure out what was going on. Strava didn't show anything too terribly amiss that would cause me to drop 10 places, so I looked at the roster for the races and tried to figure it out, and it looked like there was just some shuffling of riders from one division to another, from beginner up to intermediate, and from sport down to intermediate, and that meant that things got more competitive, and that was what it was. So coming into race number 4, I kind of knew what the field was doing, and I was hoping that I could just hang in there. I would totally let go of my hopes for any kind of top 5 finish, top 10. It was just sort of, okay, let's see what we can do. For race number 4, I got off okay at the start, and my plan was simple. I had looked around, seen who was doing sort of top 10 finish pretty consistently, and I was going to try and stick with them and see what they were doing and how they were handling things. This guy on the left in the white jersey, I was going to try and pace off him a little bit. I was pretty sure I couldn't keep with him toward the end of the race, but I was going to stick with him for as long as I could. He'd been steadily placing sort of between 8 and 10, and that was great for me. I figured that was a good goal to work from, trying to move up from 22nd place in my last race. Fast forward a little bit, we're about 8 minutes into the lap, and I'm leaving space for some younger riders on the right-hand side here. I don't want to cut them off, do anything to hurt anybody, and so I'm going to leave some space for the rider in the green here and come around, but I'm managing to still hold the white jersey's wheel. Unfortunately, the rider on my right is no longer the kid in the green. It's another rider who's in my division. So he takes, now I'm 1 wheel back from the white jersey that I'm trying to pace from. And coming up to this little up and over feature, I had found that the left-hand line was a little more solid, so I pulled to the left. Well, now I'm 2 wheels back. There's a bottleneck at the top. Now I'm 3 wheels back, 4, 5 wheels back, and I'm having to get started again. Meanwhile, the white jersey rolled on through unencumbered and has put a bit of a gap on me. Spent a few minutes trying to catch up, but kind of thinking he's gone, and grinding my way up this the back climb here and coming over the top. Amazing, there he is. But I'm so cross-eyed, I don't realize that's him. So I kind of soft pedaled over the top, tried to coast a little bit and breathe, and let it get away. And this is the same climb 1 lap later on the final lap of the race. And I have no idea where I'm sitting. I'm just trying to do what I can. I see that the guy in the Knuckleheads jersey here is in my division, so I'm all proud of myself for picking up a spot, which normally, up until this point, I'd spent most of my final laps getting past. So I feel like this is maybe a win. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing better, but we'll see. But unfortunately, coming over the top here, I do the same thing I always did. I thought that was a moment to stop and take a breath, and I think I was just out of practice racing. You come over the top, you give it another 5 seconds, you bring it all back up to speed, and then you look at maybe taking a second to breathe. And of course, what happens when you slow down during a bike race is you get passed, and it's often by the people you just worked so hard to put a gap on, like the guy in the Knuckleheads jersey. Nice guy. He gave me a tip on using the berm, and that served me well in the rest of the race. But in this case, I just didn't have any more legs. I was done, and I brought it in for 18th place, and that actually felt pretty good. I had stopped getting worse and worse results every week. I felt like I had raced reasonably well. I'd avoided a lot of the mistakes I'd made before, and I felt like, okay, this is something I can work with. I can look forward to working on this and trying to do better next week. So that's it for the first part of this series, and we'll see you next time. Enjoy.